Welcome to the Amazon Investor Coalition podcast. Let's dive in.
In the month to come, we will discuss about mining and deforest in Venezuela with Cristina Vollmer Burelli.
For many in the international community and indeed in the global environmental community, it's probably surprising to learn that Venezuela is one of the top 10 mega biodiverse countries in the world alongside Brazil, but it's also highly mineral rich, and it's suffering probably from the worst environmental crisis in the Western Hemisphere, the highest deforestation rate of the Americas and Amazonia. And many of you probably haven't read or heard about this in the media. So hopefully today I can walk you through what's going on. So first, a little bit of geography. This is a map of Venezuela, and the Orinoco River Basin is located both in Amazonia and the Guiana Shield, a Precambrian geological formation, which is one of the last relics of the earliest part of the world's history. And what makes Venezuela's Amazonian region unique within Pan-Amazonia is not so much its size, but the fact that it comprises lowland, tropical forests, and a wide range of ecosystems along an elevational gradient of up to 3,000 meters above sea level. And this is what makes it so biodiverse. And of course, one of the jewels in the crown of Venezuela's Amazonian region is Canaima National Park, otherwise known as the land of the lost world. Widely celebrated as one of the most stunning landscapes on the planet. So much so that it was declared a World Heritage Site in 1994. So in this map, you'll see that basically the Orinoco River splits the country in half, and 60% of the country is south of the Orinoco River. Now, the collapse of the Venezuelan oil-based economy has basically pushed the Nicolás Maduro government to seek new sources of revenue. And it's turned to basically plundering the country's vast mineral resources and selling them as contraband to international buyers. This illegal trade threatens to destroy one of the world's most biodiverse areas and decimate the region's indigenous population. So in February 2016, without the approval of the democratically elected National Assembly, Maduro decreed that a section of the Amazon covering 12% of Venezuela's territory, so basically it's all of this red that you see here and this little red square down here, decreed that it would become a mining development zone, the so-called Arco Minero del Orinoco, or the Orinoco Mining Arc. And it contains vast reserves of coltan, iron, bauxite, diamonds. It could hold the second largest gold deposits in the world at 42,800 square miles, 111, almost 112,000 kilometers squared. It covers an area that is bigger than Portugal. So Maduro's signature mining gamble gives the outward appearance of having this well-delimited geographical scope, but in reality, its intent has spread out into areas not defined as being inside the Orinoco Mining Arc. And this includes national parks, including the World Heritage Site. It's given rise to a gold rush throughout the entire region, south of the Orinoco River, and now even parts of northern Venezuela. And the regime is effectively signaling that indiscriminate mining has been given priority over the preservation of the extremely delicate environment found in Venezuela. This map of southern Venezuela resembles a mosaic, and it shows the diversity of strategies implemented by Venezuela during the course of the 20th century in order to ensure conservation and sustainable development. So Venezuela has in the Amazonia Guayana region 29 protected areas, 8 national parks, 19 natural monuments, and 2 biosphere reserves. And throughout the 20th century, prior to the arrival of Chavez on the scene, Venezuela had probably the most conservationist policy for its Amazonian region in all of Latin America. All various governments, democratic, dictatorial, whatever, they all created laws that protected vast areas of pristine forests south of the Orinoco River. Indigenous peoples' ancestral territories were protected. Canaima National Park was declared a World Heritage Site, and numerous protected areas were created between 1962 and 1993. And all mining was made illegal in this large state of Amazonas, where you see the cursor. And it protected the freshwater sources that are among the most abundant on the continent and provide close to 70% of Venezuela's hydroelectric power. Now, this doesn't mean that there was no illegal mining, nor that foreign miners like Brazilian garimpeiros were not exploiting mines illegally, but it was minimal compared to what we're seeing today. And these circles on this map highlight the areas that SOS Orinoco has been doing reports on. And I'm going to, just show you a few of these. So a few examples of what's going on. So first of all, the Imataca Forest Reserve on the Cuyuni River. This is the heart of the Orinoco mining arc, and it is an area of extreme violence and pretty horrific mining, as you can see this satellite image. I'm going to go quickly over these. I do want to stop a minute on this slide on Canaima, the World Heritage Site, because the explosion of illegal gold mining in and around Canaima, which is the World Heritage Site, is without doubt the most scandalous example of what's going on in Venezuela. This is the violation of Venezuela's most emblematic national park, home to Angel Falls, the world's highest waterfall, and many other remarkable tabletop mountains known as tepuis, or such as Roraima. We share the border with Brazil on Mount Roraima. SOS Orinoco has been studying the situation in Canaima and reporting on a regular basis to UNESCO and IUCN. And at last count, in July of this year, we were able to find, as you see on this map, 59 illegal mining clusters, each containing dozens of mines in and around the World Heritage Site. This park is also the ancestral home of the Bemong indigenous people, many of whom have been forced to abandon their traditional activities and tourism to work in illegal mines in order to survive. SOS Orinoco did an evaluation of the scope of mercury contamination, and an estimated 70% of the Caroni River, which is along the border here, may be polluted with mercury. This is another example. So Icabaru, this is the headwaters of the Caroni River. It's a protective zone, and as you can see in this picture, the mining is horrific. This is right on the border of Brazil.
Cristina, sorry, I think I accidentally put you on mute. 1 second. Could you, Cristina, could you unmute yourself?
Unmute. There.
Okay, sorry about that. Keep on going.
No problem. Guayquinima Natural Monument, another emblematic natural monument. I mean, completely gutted out with illegal mines and mercury poisoning. Next, I wanted moved. Sorry. Hold on a second. Okay. So all of these were in the state of Bolívar. Now I'd like to focus our attention on the state of Amazonas, and in particular Yapacana National Park. This is very close to the border of Colombia. This national park has basically become a FARC fiefdom, where dissident FARC lord over this previously uninhabited national park, and now home to 2,000 to 3,000 illegal miners. The guerrillas control all the illegal gold mining and provide all types of services to the miners, everything from food, they pay the teachers, it's like a state within a state. And Yapacana has become a financial and logistical center for the FARC. as well as their entry point to all of southern Venezuela. So drug money is laundered through gold mining. The dissident FARC and ELN are investing drug money into gold mining. And every gram of gold illegally produced enriches the coffers of the Colombian guerrilla, which is granted safe passage and haven by the Maduro regime. So as long as the FARC have unfettered access to Yapacana, Colombia and the broader region will be under the growing threat of their terrorist activities. Now moving along to southern, the tip of Venezuela, and this is Brazil, okay? And this is otherwise known as Yanomami land. This is where the Yanomami and the Yeguana live. This is also the Upper Orinoco Caciquiare Biosphere Reserve. And the expansion of illegal mines in this region is also controlled by the FARC dissident. And they're not only threatening the existence of the Yanomami indigenous people, but they're also a threat to the neighborhood because the FARC are demonstrably in alliance with the invading Brazilian garimpeiros or miners. The Venezuelan armed forces also profit by providing logistical and air support with helicopters, believe it or not, that transport fuel, machinery, etc., to the mines, some of which are on top of the tepuis. So here's a satellite image of Aracamuni National Park. They're doing mining on the top of this tepui. At this very moment, Yanomami witnesses have informed SOS Orinoco that there are over 40 illegal Brazilian miners in Hashimu, which is right here, and that there's a huge risk of the COVID pandemic exploding in this area, threatening the Yanomami and Yeguana people. And in all of this huge region, all medical facilities except for one, which is much further up north, have basically closed down. And this is just a quick view of all the indigenous groups south of the Orinoco. I mean, it's a tremendously rich cultural area with all of these indigenous groups that are suffering from the consequences of this criminal mining policy by the Maduro government.
5 minutes.
Okay, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about the dynamics behind all this illegal mining. So the mining and the trade has become a lifeline for the regime, which has basically put the military in charge of management. The military man the checkpoints, control access to the mines, manage the flow of gasoline used for equipment, and extort tribute from workers and criminal groups. All other groups operating in this area, including criminal syndicates, the FARC, the Colombian National Liberation Army, ELN, are basically in connivance with the military. So we're witnessing an intensification and expansion of mining operations by state and non-state actors that are being shielded by the government, and they recur to violence 24/7. This mining policy promotes violence, slave labor, child labor, prostitution, and of course, a deeply troubling dismantling of indigenous social structures, with countless silent and not so silent killings of indigenous and non-indigenous people. It's also responsible for the explosion of a malaria epidemic that is spreading to the rest of Venezuela and other neighboring countries. There are close to 450,000 new cases of malaria in 2019. On July 15th of this year, the UN Office for Human Rights accused the Venezuelan military of failing to prevent crimes against minors in the country's south, including extortion, amputations, and live burials. So Venezuela's mining industry has become an activity that's imbued in a vast organized crime scheme that reaches all levels of Venezuelan political and military power structure. Top government officials are being rewarded and loyalties bought by a regime that is parceling out access to this vast area. And these are a few facts and figures just that I wanted to highlight. So in conclusion, I think it's critical to point out that the speed at which this tragedy is evolving is surely going to define a future transition and governability of Venezuela as a nation state for years to come. These emerging threats to security in Venezuela and surrounding countries cannot be analyzed or understood without considering the role of its vast minerals and its fragile environment. And I think the international community needs to increase the tracking of these high value resources and the networks that traffic them in international markets in order to minimize the potential for these resources to finance lasting conflict. And finally, I think we just have a responsibility to fight, to allow, we can't allow for the fight for mineral wealth that has decimated a number of African countries to take hold in the middle of the Western Hemisphere that has never seen this kind of conflict. So with that, thank you so much, and let me know if you have any questions.
Hi, thank you for this presentation, Cristina. I know that it is challenging to put in so much information in a limited time frame, and I was wondering if it was okay if we could get a copy of your slideshow or some other supplemental information about this that I can share with people from Nexus Global Philanthropy's Working Indigenous Issues Group, and for my colleague Leanna from the New York City Indigenous Kinship Collective, and my other colleague from Merrill Lynch Wealth Management.
Absolutely. I'll send it to Jonah, and then you can share it with the group. Definitely.
Great.
Thank you.
Christine, if you can send it to me now during the second half of the call, I'll make sure to get it and put it up on Google Drive and share the link.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, Walter, you have a question.
Yes, I was unmuting myself. Great presentation. Congratulations, Cristina. Desperate situation. This is truly an example of the fourth horseman of the apocalypse, neighboring Venezuela. But besides the image and the pleading to international actors, what else can be done? The state of Venezuela is not responsive to any help. They've excluded themselves from 20 by 20. Very difficult to bring impact investment to Venezuela. The situation of governance is dismal. Offer us a ray of hope, please.
Yeah, it's difficult. I think there are two different things that can be done. One, obviously, is bringing this into the spotlight. And today, a very gutsy journalist called Bram Ebus, I'll put this on the chat, published a very in-depth study on the smuggling and the traffic of mercury. And he goes there into the fact that, there are ways for the international community, particularly countries that are part of OECD, such as Colombia, and I think Peru is also part of OECD, to implement, strategies to stop the flow of blood gold, basically. So we are, putting this out there. Countries need to stop, the flow of gold that is produced under these conditions. And we can only really do that if we make these countries and companies aware of the flow of this kind of gold. And just make sure that big companies that are using gold for smartphones, et cetera, actually understand where gold is coming from, and to ban gold that comes from Venezuela. This worked with blood diamonds in Africa, and I think it's really important to start implementing this with regard to gold. That's one thing. The other thing, which is a little bit more complicated in my mind, because it's a mindset change, is the fact that the opposition in Venezuela is trying to find ways of funding a transition. And sadly, we are starting to see people within the opposition trying to embrace these same mineral policies but thinking that they can rebrand them. And just because, you know, it's going to be in the hands of the opposition, this Arco Minero will be, you know, sort of cleaner. So what we're trying to do is drive the conversation to make people in Venezuela understand that they need to look at sustainable ways of developing the Amazonian region, that we cannot fall into the trap of these extractivist policies just because we're desperate and we're poor. And I think that helping the opposition in Venezuela, helping the international community to understand this and to see where the pitfalls are is really key. Because otherwise, if we do, when and if we get a transition, we might fall into the same trap of this horrific extractivist approach to dealing with southern Venezuela.
I want to open it up for other people who might have a question. And for those of you who are dialed in, just for sound reasons, I've muted most of you. I think either *6 or *9 will take you off of mute. So feel free. Anyone else have a question?
Jonah, this is Susan Keene speaking. Is it okay if I just make a comment here?
Yes.
So as I mentioned at the beginning, I am working on a big project on this exact issue of, gold and the use of mercury in gold production. And there are quite, to give a ray of hope, someone asked for a ray of hope, there's already quite a substantial effort under the OECD to try to address conflict gold. Really, it originated in the Great Lakes region of Africa, but it's a global effort. There are standards for refiners, downstream gold users to abide by when sourcing gold. There is the Minamata Convention on Mercury, which is trying to reduce mercury use in the sector, et cetera, et cetera. So there is a lot of international policy tools that can be applied. I guess I go back to the question of, in this setting where you have such a recalcitrant government and essentially exploiting the people, who are, I'm sure, most of the people engaged in the sector as they are worldwide, including in Colombia. I mean, Colombia has quite a bit of its own illegal small-scale gold mining problem, as does Peru, as does Bolivia, as does Guyana. What I find maybe a bit challenging is really this issue of how do we work with those kinds of policy tools when you don't actually have a collaborative government. Although I guess working with downstream gold buyers might be one approach. I don't know, Cristina, if you've engaged your with that kind of community of, for example, the London Bullion Market Association, which has its responsible gold, good delivery requirements, et cetera, and inform them about the situation in Venezuela.
Yeah, actually, I haven't, but the interim government, the Guaidó government ambassador to the UK, Vanessa Neumann, has done a lot of this. In fact, she was instrumental in stopping the Maduro government from putting its hands on the gold that was in the central bank in the UK. And I hear that there's I think there's a new law that's going to be, I just saw something today. I didn't even have time. But anyway, she, I know, is very involved with this. But that's key. That's key. Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing we can really do at this point is educate and inform. I'm very, to me, one of the most important things is to educate the Venezuelan people, because many of them, and many of our politicians, journalists, don't even know what they have south of the Orinoco. They don't know the importance and the just the wonder that exists south of the Orinoco. And just by educating people and making them, hopefully making them stakeholders, people who care and who will stand up to whatever government. I think
we have one question from Tosa Soltani.
Hi, Cristina. Thanks so much for your excellent presentation. I've actually used to spend some time working in this part of the Amazon. My question was just basically whether any of the information that you've documented been presented in either a complaint or a thematic educational hearing to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, given Indigenous peoples impacts and also human rights impacts.
Yes, we haven't done it in a public arena, but we have spoken to people at the OAS, and there's groups in the intergovernment that are working with the OAS, the CIDH, so they are, yeah, that is, people are active on that as well, and the Bachelet report went into, I mean, obviously it's a limited report, so there wasn't too much space, but they did denounce what was going on with the Hmong people and other indigenous groups. But obviously there's a lot more to be done.
Great, thanks. And then one last question from Liana.
Hi, yes, Cristina, thank you so much for this presentation. And I think I maybe heard a couple of specific mentions just now at the end of your thing, but you're a bit muffled, your audio right now. But anyway, I was just wondering if you have any specific Indigenous leaders or tribes in the region that you are like actively working with and including in this conversation, which is obviously really important and involves them directly. So I'm just curious, like, who you've been speaking with and working with.
The Hmong, we've been working with the Hmong people, but also with the Yanomami. In each of these, on the presentation, there were those circles. So that each one of those circles corresponds to a report that SOS Orinoco has done on those areas. And some of those areas have more indigenous people, so there's more information. So on our website, you will find the reports. They're in English and Spanish. And there's a lot of detail on particularly the Yanomami and the Hmong, who are the most affected by illegal mining. Also, we have not done one on the situation in the Cauda region, which is affecting the Hopi indigenous people, but we kind of mentioned it as well.
Thanks for watching. For more investment insights, subscribe and visit AmazonInvestor.org. Stay savvy, stay connected.